Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine. Today I would like to talk a bit about an important topic about losing our interest and physical attraction for our partner as a possible trauma reaction. You might have heard about people who experience that their sexual attraction to their partner have suddenly or gradually faded out and disappeared. Many people assume that this is something that will inevitably happen through time. But this is not necessarily true always. As I have always said, love and maintaining long-term marriage or love relationships is about fostering skill and not just about having exciting feelings, excitement and sexual attraction toward a person. Some people have perhaps missed out this point and may consider love as only physical chemistry. Of course, chemistry and physical attraction is a primary factor, and without that the connection and beginning of a relationship will not happen. But the point is that there should be something additional which facilitates survival of the relationship and maintaining connection of two human souls. Many people experience that although safety and stability are important factors in relationships, it can also kill the excitement and passion over time, because then they will be able to read their partner's behaviors, predict the mutual space between them, their responses, and the whole environment much more easily and smoothly. It is like, knowing what the next step, the next action is bringing for you, psychologically, emotionally. And so you might unconsciously put less effort into discovering your surroundings, especially the relational settings in your relationship, as well as your partner's personality and soul. By further establishment in life, and when both of you, regardless of having children together or not, are settled in life, you might feel that you're just, absorbed into the daily life structure and routines and literally have forgotten each other's emotional needs and desires. This is a very common thing to happen for many families. So in a relational setting such as marriage or a love commitment, we deal with a protective and reciprocal space which is constantly influenced by each other's psychological input, and therefore all we have in our life narratives from the past are emotional and psychological patterns and coping strategies step into this mutual space and will influence the way we are perceiving each other through time, not only physically, but also psychologically. We know by clinical and personal life experiences, and also according to research, that resentment and unresolved conflicts and problems, interruptions in relationship dynamics, and unfulfilled needs will result in distance and coldness. Consequently, this will not only affect the sexual attraction and your intimacy and relationships quality, but also other aspects of life such as parenting, financial decisions, and so on. Because when resentment is there, it will get generalized to other places and impact you through life's several areas. Some people may experience that the lack of attraction stems from the fact that their partner's appearance, and physical shape has changed because of their weight gain or body shape change and so on. But other people may more, easily relate it to the fact that there are some sorts of emotional issues, mostly at their own side, which cause this lack. And this thing usually becomes a difficult theme, difficult problem for them to talk about and seek help for. If so, it is important to find the reason out and understand it. Otherwise, you fall into the loop of unconsciously enforcing and convincing yourself that your gut feelings, your meanings, true self's messages and needs are not so important. You, in other words, ignore yourself and feel that you are obligated to endure unpleasant feelings from unfulfilled desires and emotional needs in your relationship. So let me share an example from the therapy room. I had a client for a few years ago who had been struggling in his relationship for a while. He was referred because of his stress reactions after his wife left him, since he cheated on her. In therapy sessions, it was revealed that he had started feeling stressed and anxious whenever he left home to work or found himself in social settings where he should talk to or communicate with women in general. So this started to happen almost 1.5 years before all this happened and his wife left him. He reached a point where he chose to stay home and not, going outside unless he had to do that. So I asked him how he thought about it and how it suddenly became such a big issue for him, to talk and to communicate with women in general. He did not know the answer, but he knew that he could get nervous and very anxious, and he could think unpleasant and shameful thoughts about other women. Also, he did not want to do something bad. When I asked him to, elaborate on this answer and explain more, he said that he noticed that he thought frequently, what if he could not control himself, that he suddenly does something which is totally unacceptable or embarrassing or awkward. I checked it out again. If he could get some, sexual impulses or fantasy pictures, or it is also about, violence thoughts and imaginations. He admitted that the former one held true. It means that he actually, got sexual images, and therefore it became very tough for him to stand it. He knew that he will never do something out of control, but the thought itself had such a powerful impact that scared and overwhelmed him. I interpreted this as a strong suppressive mechanism where the sexual drive and obsessions, sexual temptations were unconsciously tried to, wipe out and get suppressed in the system. So the question was, how come? Why his unconscious mind did that? And what was that mechanism driven by? I asked him about his relationship with his wife. To my surprise, he replied immediately that he actually found their relationship very well and that his wife has been a great person. He told me that he has nothing bad about her to talk or to mention, and she was perhaps too good for him. I remember that I got more and more curious about the quality of that relationship. He expressed gratitude toward her because of her patience, kindness, personality, and all the things and services she did for him. I felt that his narrative and the way he tried to formulate himself and wrap it up was at some point empty of enthusiasm and personal and sexual energy, which usually, radiates from a life partner for her. So he talked about her formally as if he talked about, his boss or a female colleague. So to address these contrasts, I asked him another question. I asked him if he will marry him again, if he goes back in the time. After a relatively, long pause, his answer was negative this time. He could not do that. Also, he loved her so much because he could see that he could not maintain his authenticity. He could not allow himself to be his authentic and true version of self beside her. That sounded weird for him when he said it loudly and shared, his inner world's experience with me. He remembered that he had been feeling like this for years, but during recent years of their marriage, especially after their daughter was born, this experience got just intense. And he felt that he was, strangled and pushed to present a false version of himself always, without knowing why he was feeling like this. However, he knew that he was not sexually attracted to her anymore. For example, sometimes he pretended to be asleep when she came to bed, or that he refused to talk about difficult and important themes and problems with her. So I tried to help him, to go a little deeper and express his feelings about this, connection, what he was feeling with her in her surroundings. His answer was interesting. He was not feeling that he's, himself when he's around his wife. That he always had such a feeling that he had tended to censor and reduce his true and authentic self, and he literally, shuts down emotionally. So he could acknowledge that he was for a long time going through something that he became more aware of in the recent time, something which was about an important but unknown emotional issue. However, it was only about, intimacy. He respected his wife a lot and saw her as a beautiful, competent and very strong woman. So he felt guilty of hanging out with a female colleague. However, he denied that he had started meeting and dating this friend only because of sexual attraction. Interestingly, he was experiencing that it could be about something beyond that, as he could be himself around this friend. He felt that he could have fun, be calm when they talked and hanged out. He could even feel that he could, comfortably be a little rude and naughty, and did not care that much about, his behaviors or words toward her. So he was just himself. But in contrast, he could not feel free and authentic when he was with his wife. Instead, he could feel shame, as if he will, mistreat and undermine her. His experience was like, if I ask her something or show myself to be demanding, be very comfortable with my sexual and emotional needs, it means that I will have a request, or, I will request a service from her, which I will not deserve, which I cannot allow myself to do. So this was a huge discovery in this therapy, because it could give us a clue what was happening and where this response came from. When I asked him to reflect, generally, and talk about how he thinks about a person who demands things that he does not actually deserve, by asking people, by requesting things that he does not actually deserve, my client answered that he considers such a person as a jerk, as a mean and unfair person. And interestingly, he could mention a typical person who was a jerk, who was a mean and unfair person from his past, his youngest uncle. This guy had apparently cheated frequently on his, ex-girlfriends, and also afterwards on his wife. And because of all those, traumatic moments and dramas which were followed by these situations in the family, the whole family got very disappointed in him, and he finally left the family, and all around him influenced the family dynamics in a very negative way later. So my client remembered that his parents, especially his father, usually told him that you often, you cannot become like your uncle, Or even when he did something wrong, made some mistakes, or whenever, their parents were not satisfied by his behaviors or decisions, he could be told by them that you are like your uncle again. In other words, he was ashamed and felt embarrassed and guilty to be like a person who was always, pictured and perceived as the one who sexualized and mistreat and traumatized women. So he was always scared of his jerk and mean uncle. And every time he wanted to be himself, ask his wife about something, or behave in a real and authentic way and feel intimacy, his mind sent his father's voice to his conscious mind and hindered him to go further and express himself and be authentic and enjoy having a sexual relationship and intimacy with his wife. So our hypothesis was that he had been living under a shadow of shame without being aware of that. He could not dare and allow himself to ask someone, especially women in close relationships, to do something for him or demand them. This could trigger heavy shame and fear. You can say that his parents' hands came out from the past and held him back every time he was about to try feeling intimacy and good, authentic feeling toward his wife. So respect, serious and formal interpersonal relationship patterns with the woman who was supposed to be the person with whom he should be, intimate and emotionally present and close, were exclusively wired to be allowed in his relationship, and intimacy and authenticity and being comfortable were wired to be forbidden and taboo. But for another woman who he did not know well, he allowed himself, unconsciously to be himself, to let it go and feel comfort without being obsessed or show, respect or behave in an appropriate manner or whatever. So you see how destructive it became for him. So an exclusive relationship to respect and conscientiousness, and also a paradoxical relationship with intimacy and authenticity were developed where they could not be played together in relationship dynamics. And this became the blueprint of his nervous system, unfortunately. This is about an emotional trauma. So my focus in therapy was to help him to unlearn this association, this learning, to remove shame and guilt which came up from being connected with his authentic true self and in touch with warm and intimate feelings in his relationship. Well, sometimes we feel that we are just not there anymore. We cannot make, strides together anymore, and the physical attraction has gone. Although we have tried to work through it and encourage our partner to see and recognize our perspective or experience, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Sometimes, physical attraction disappears because of accumulation of resentment experiences over time. For example, if you have heard much of, disrespectful and derogatory statements during your arguments and hard times from your partner, you will gradually lose interest, and also, physical attraction will vanish out of the space for you. So your body will not collaborate and let you to connect, physically and sexually with that person after such brutal belittlement over time. That causes interruptions and small traumas in your connection space and in your relationship dynamics. I assume that the most important thing is to, recognize commitment we have in the relationship. There are things that we can do now, steps we can take to improve quality of our relationship, and to do this, we must have, constructive conversations about such issues, since every experience in our relationship teaches something very important and valuable about us. I hope that you have found these reflections and thoughts and experiences useful. Thanks for being here with me, for tuning in. Let us connect again with another video. Thank you. Take care. Bye.